This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah. So last class we have seen how to perform the what delete operation, and we have seen the query option what dollar top. Okay. So let me open my project. Yeah, this is the project ZEPM underscore project, and as part of this we have one entity product, and this entity has got some five properties: product ID, type code, category, name, and what description. Okay. So try to understand this. Initially I created I created my entity with how many properties? Five properties, and I've done the implementation for what? Three steps. What are they? Get entity set, and what? Create. Okay. So when I let me try to maintain this quickly under service maintenance, I'll right click on this. I'll say maintain. Right. I'll choose this gateway client, SAP gateway client. I'll say allow. Done. Now let me query. Okay, I'll query for all the products. So I'll just say hello. Done. Execute. Right. So this is your what product IDs. Okay, we have HTIF-1000. Okay, we have HTIF-1001, HTIF-1002, 1007. Like this, we are having all the products. So if you observe here, if you observe, my entity contains how many properties? Five properties. So we are getting the data only for what? Five properties. Okay. So my requirement is I want to add some additional properties in my entity. I want to add some additional properties in my entity. Suppose let me take some. If I go to function builder, what is the function model? BAPI underscore EPM underscore what? Product underscore what? Get list. BAPI underscore EPM underscore product underscore get list. So if you see this function model, what does it do? It returns an internal table containing what? Product header details. Okay, so if you double click on this structure has got 18 fields. Product ID, type code, category name. This is why I consider only 5 fields. Now let me consider some other fields like we have what? Supplier underscore ID. Try to understand. We have supplier underscore ID, supplier underscore name, tax underscore tariff code, measurement unit. Like this we have currency code. Like this we have different around what 18 properties. So what is my requirement is in my entity I want to add some additional properties referring to what supplier ID, supplier name, tax, measurement unit, like this. Okay. So let me add those particular additional properties. So when I supplier ID is what type? Character of 10. Supplier name is what type? Character of 80. Tax is what type? Integer 1 of 3. Measurement unit is what? Unit of 3. And currency is what? Currency key of 5. Currency key of 5. Done. So keeping these 5 fields in mind, let me add it here. So what is the requirement? I want to add what? Some additional properties. I want to add the additional properties in my existing entity. So what I'll do is, one second please. Yeah, let me add some additional properties. I'll double click on this properties window. We have some five properties as of now. Let me add a few more. So I'll open this in editable mode. Done. I'll keep on saying what append row. Yeah, I'll add some five properties. What are the five properties? I'll take supplier ID. Supplier ID. Here the name is what? Supplier underscore ID, supplier underscore name, both are character fields. Here I'm giving the name as only what? Supplier ID. Let me give the type as what EDM dot what string. Then I'll take what supplier name, supplier name. Let me take it as what EDM dot string. Done. Then what else? What is the other field name here? Tax underscore tarif underscore code. So let me take only what tax. Okay, I'll take only tax here. Right, I'll take tax. You can take any name. What is this tax type here? Tax type is what? How much? Integer one of three. Integer one of three. So I'll take the related one here. For int one of three. For int one of three. Yeah, you can take this. What is it? EDM dot byte. EDM dot byte I can take. 8-bit integer value. Done. Then what else? What are the other fields here? Measure underscore unit and currency underscore code. Measure underscore unit and currency underscore code. So I'll take the field name as something. Measurement unit. Measurement unit. Done. I'll take the this thing as EDM dot what string. Then I'll take another field here. Let me take currency code. I'll take this also as what EDM dot string. So what is that I've done is, as part of my existing entity, I've added some five more properties. I've added some five more properties. Okay, so let me save it. Check for the syntax errors, no errors. Regenerate the runtime artifacts. Done. They are regenerated. Let me try to maintain the service. I'll right click on this. I'll say maintain. Yeah, I'll go to gateway client. Hello. Yeah, I'll choose what? I'll choose the entity set. What is the entity set here? Product set. Let me query. So this is going to pull me what? All the records. This is going to pull me all the records. So when I execute, and in each record, I'm expecting how many fields? Some 10 fields. 10 fields. There you can see we have product ID, type code, category name, description, but I don't have the data for what other entity properties. What are they? Supplier ID, supplier name, tax, measurement unit, and what? Currency code. So it is returning me the fields without any data. So I'll do the necessary changes. Am I clear? I'm getting the 10 properties per record, but I'm not getting the data for that. So what I'll do, I have to do the changes in my implementation. So I'll go to service implementation. I'll right click on this. I'll say go to ABAP workbench. It opens a code here. Here I have to do the necessary changes. So what you are doing here, it does not disturb this. I'm getting the product details. Yeah, we are looping and we are mapping only what? Five fields. Now what I have to do, I have to map the data for my other five fields also. So in that structure, what are the fields I need to consider? In that structure, I need to consider what fields? Supplier underscore ID, supplier underscore name, tax underscore tarif underscore code, TARIF, measure underscore unit, and currency underscore code. Done. So I need to map those five fields also. I'll just copy it. Yeah. So in my entity level, what are the field names? In my entity level, the field names are what? Supplier ID, and this is supplier ID and supplier name. And what is this? Next field tax I took. Then I took I think measurement unit, measurement unit. Then I took currency code. Then in my structure level, what are the field names? Here it is what? Supplier underscore ID, and this is supplier underscore ID, and this is supplier underscore name, and this is tax underscore tarif underscore code, tax underscore tarif underscore code, and then here it is what measure underscore unit. Understood? In my written structure, the field names are this measure underscore norm, and this is what is this currency underscore code. Yeah, currency underscore code. There are the fields in my internal table. Currency underscore code. Let me refer to that. So here I'll say currency underscore currency currency underscore code. That's all done. Let me save it. Check for the syntax error done. Activated. So what is the change I have done? In my entity I have added some additional 5 properties and I'm doing the necessary code changes. So what are the code changes I have done? This function model will return all the product details and each product will contain what? 18 fields. Earlier we have looped it and we have mapped only 5 fields because my entity contains only 5 fields. Now my entity contains 5 more fields. So I am mapping those fields. Done. I'll activate this. Go back. Let me check for the syntax error. No errors. I'll regenerate the runtime artifacts. Done. I'll say maintain. I'll choose SAP gateway client. I'll say hello. Done. I'll choose entity set. I'll choose product set. Execute. Done. Okay. I got the data. Yes, you can see I got the data for what? 5 additional properties. Supplier ID, supplier name, that. For every record, I am getting the data. So what I am trying to show here is initially you might have created the data model. Creating the data model is you might have created some entity with some properties and you have implemented some code. Later on during the project, the customer will ask you to what? So add some additional properties to an entity. So whenever you add the additional properties or modify the existing properties, you need to do the necessary code changes. So it's working fine, working fine. Now I'll do one thing. I'll take one product here randomly. I'll query for what HT-1010. So I'm in the URL. What I'm doing, I'm passing the value for my key property. What is the HTTP method? Get only. When I execute, it will execute with stuff get entity. That get entity will execute the method what product set underscore get underscore entity, which is responsible for returning what specific product details. So when I execute, good, I'm getting the data. HTML1010 done. I'm getting the data. Yes, you can see. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting the fields without any data because we have not done any code changes further. Am I clear? So what I mean to say is when you add some additional properties or when you delete the existing properties or when you modify the existing properties in entity, we need to do the code changes in all the stubs. In all the stubs. Okay, so what I'll do now, I have to make the changes in the stub what get entity now so that I'll get the data for these 5 fields also. So let me just go back. Let me do the changes. So service implementation get entity. I'll say go to ABAP workbench. Done. It has opened the code. Make the necessary changes. So what you are doing here, see here we are mapping only what 5 fields. I need to map what the other 5 fields. So I'll just copy this and paste it first. Done. So ER underscore entity hyphen. What are the fields in my entity level? Supplier ID, supplier ID, and my structure level it is what? Supplier underscore ID, supplier underscore ID. Done. And here it is what? Supplier underscore name, supplier underscore name, and here it is what? Only supplier name. If the names are same both in the source and target, I would have used what? Move corresponding. Okay. supplier underscore name. What is this here? Tax underscore tarif underscore code. In my entity level, I give the property name as simply what tax. Done. And this I gave this as measure unit, I think. Measurement unit. I gave it as measurement unit. Here it is what measure underscore unit. In the structure level, the field name is measure underscore unit. This is currency underscore code, currency underscore code, and this is only what currency code. Currency code. Let me save it. Check for the syntax error. Done. Activate this. So I have done the necessary code changes here. I've done the necessary code changes. Activate this. Done. They're activated. Let me check it for delete also. Because already we have implemented delete. Do we require to do the changes here? No, I don't require, because here what we are doing, in order to delete the product, just I need to pass the product ID work area. So I don't require any changes in my delete stuff. Right, let me check the syntax here. Generate the runtime objects. Yes, they are generated. Let me maintain it now. Then I'll click on execute. Sorry, I have to choose out entity set. This is for querying what all the records, no? So I'll do one thing. Achha, what is the count I am getting here? Let me check the count first. How many products are there? 116. The number of products are what? 116. Okay. Let me query for a particular record. So in the product set, in the URL, I have to give what? In the parentheses, I have to give ht-1010. ht-1010. Execute this. Okay. So I got the data. Yeah, I got the data for what? All the 10 fields. Done. Supplier ID, supplier name, tax, measurement unit, and currency code. Done. Working fine. Okay, so what is the count I got? 116. Now let me try to implement. Let me try to implement the step what? Create. Okay, I have to implement the step what? Create. So let me implement the step create here. So right click on this. Also what? Go to what? ABAP workbench. Okay, go to ABAP workbench. Then operation so and so is not implemented. Done. It will take the control to data product extension class. What is the method I need to redefine here? Product set underscore create underscore what? Entity. Product set underscore create underscore entity. Right, so I'll redefine this. It is in display mode. Let me operate in editable mode. I'll choose create underscore entity. I'll click on what? Redefine the method. Done. So here I need to redefine the method. Okay, so how do we redefine the method here? Let's see. What is the logic I have to do? What is the agenda here? I have to create a new product now. So for creating a new product, there is a dedicated function model for that. What is that? BAPI underscore EPM underscore product underscore what? Create. BAPI underscore EPM underscore product underscore create. So this is the function model which I need to call in order to create the new product. So what is the signature of this script? See here. I have to create a new product now. So it is expecting one mandatory what parameter? It is expecting one mandatory parameter, header data, which is of type what? PAPI underscore EPM underscore product underscore header. In this, I need to prepare a work area which contains how many fields? 18 fields. But in my context, my entity contains only 10 fields. So I'll provide the data for only what? Those 10 fields, like product underscore ID, type underscore code, category, name, description, supplier underscore ID, supplier underscore name, tax underscore tariff code, measure underscore unit, and what? Currency underscore code. So out of 18 fields, I'll provide the data for how many fields? 10 fields, so that it has to insert. Okay. So the signature of this function model is we need to prepare a work area of this type. We need to prepare a work area of this type. Done, done, done. Okay. But I need to prepare the work area of this type now. So the important thing is how do you test this create service? How do you test the create service? Okay. So for testing first, let me implement this. So what we are going to pass in the request, we might pass data for what? 10 properties, because my entity contains how many fields? 10 fields. So I may pass the data for what? 10 properties. So I need to read that particular data of those 10 fields. I need to prepare the data of those 10 fields and assign those fields to the work area of type what? PAPI underscore EPM underscore product underscore header, and then call the function model. Understood? So before calling the function model, I need to prepare this mandatory parameter now, which is a work area carrying how many fields? 18 fields. But I'm going to prepare the work area for how many fields? Only for what? 18 fields only, but I'm going to provide the data only for what? 10 fields. Okay, only for 10 fields. So what I'll do now is, first of all, when you are sending the request for creation, we are going to supply the data for how many fields? 10 fields. So I should know what is the parameter which is going to carry the data of those 10 fields. So if you see the signature, yeah, you can see here there is one parameter here, IO underscore data underscore provider. IO underscore data, which is a object of reference of what? Nothing but object of what? An interface. Object of an interface. Okay. If you double click on this interface, yeah, this interface contains one instance method. What is that? Read underscore entry underscore data. Read underscore entry underscore data. What is the description here? Retrieves the entry based on the given structure. So when you want to perform the create operation, we are going to pass the data for those 10 fields now. The 10 fields will come through this particular parameter. So this is the parameter which is going to carry the data which you have entered for what? Create operation. The input values which you have entered for what? Create operation. So I need to call this particular instance method. What this method will do? This method, good. It returns exporting type what? Any, it seems. Exporting type any. Okay. It is going to return type any. Good. Let me go back here. So this is a method I need to call. Read underscore entry underscore what? Data. No? This is the interface. Let me just copy this. Control C. So this method, when you call, it returns me what? It returns me the data related to your create operation. The input values which you're trying to pass for the create operation. So what I'll do is, but how do I take it? Good. You can see there is one more parameter here. ER underscore what? Entity. There is one more parameter ER underscore entity. It is of type what? Model product class. It is referring to a structure TS underscore product. And this TS underscore product contains what? Good. It contains your 10 fields. What are they? Product ID, type code, category name. So it's a work area with how many fields? Your 10 entity fields, 10 entity properties. Done. So see the technique here. First step I have to do is read the HTTP request content. So you'll understand that data I'll say W underscore entity. Okay, like what is that here? ER underscore entity. ER underscore entity. Okay, now I'll go to pattern. What is that method I have to call? Read entity data. What is the object of that interface? IO underscore data underscore provider. What is the interface name? This is my interface name. IO underscore data underscore provider. So I'll go to pattern, ABAP objects pattern. Here I'll say IO underscore data IO underscore data underscore what provider IO underscore data underscore what provider. What is the interface name? This is interface name. What is the method in that? Read underscore entry underscore data. So I'm calling that instance method. Yeah, it might try have some exception. If you want to handle the exception, you can try. It returns the type any na. So it is going to return my entity here. I'll receive that inside what? I'll receive that inside what? W underscore what? Entity. W underscore entity. Done. Okay, so it might have some exception, it might raise some exception. So control goes to what? Catch block. So in the catch block, you can handle the exception here. Done, done, done. Up to this is fine. Now I'll say here, right, I'll say hello. 1 second. I'll say right hello. Done. Right hello. Let me save it. Check it. No errors done. So what I want to check is how do you pass the data for that create operation? That is important thing. So what is the method I am calling a read underscore entry underscore data. This method is responsible for reading the data passed for what create operation. In this method, whatever the data you have passed, that data will be collected in this particular work area w underscore what entity. So let me try to put the breakpoint and check. Done. Let me activate this. I want to test this create operation. So the important thing is how do we test it? So try to understand this scenario. Then it is activated. I have regenerated the runtime artifacts. Let me try to maintain the data here. Right click on this, I'll say maintain. Yeah. See the mechanism for testing this. 1 second. Yeah, yeah. First, first what you have to do is you try to query for the existing product. So I'll choose this product set. Here in the parentheses, you try to query for existing product. So I'll give HT-1010. HT-1010. So what is the HTTP method I'm choosing here? Get now. Let me try to execute. HT-1010, the product I'm giving. Okay, it's going there. I'll say fetch. Yeah, I got the data for what? I got the data for all this 10 fields. So if you scroll down, yeah, I'm getting the data for all those 10 fields. Okay, supplier ID, supplier name, tags, all this. So now in order to test a create operation, what is the first thing you have to, what is the first test case? You query for the existing product using what? Get method. I'll get the data. Then what you do is in the response section, in the HTTP response section, I got the data now. So in the HTTP response section, there is a button here, use as request. So what I'm trying to show you is how to test your create operation. So first query for an existing product. If the product is available, it displays that particular product details. Okay, it has displayed. Now, once a response is displayed, click on the button use as request. When you click on the button use as request, this response will be copied to the request section. See here, click on use as request. Then it is copied. Good. It has copied. Now what you have to do is, now here, what is the agenda here? I have to create a new product now. So in our entity, what is the key property? Product ID. So let me try to give a unique product ID. I'll give a unique product ID as 6010. So I'll just, no, that's what I said. You query for existing record. You query for existing record. Understood? That's the reason I started with what? Calling the function model. You make sure that a record is available. Otherwise, you cannot remember this syntax. No, even if you don't know, even if you don't have any records also, you have to type all these things in your request. Can you remember these things? No, no. You cannot remember these things, right? That is the reason you query for the existing record. That's why, see, you will never have a requirement to just implement create operation. Okay, you take any requirement. If you take any database operations, you'll have all these requirements: create, delete, query, all those things. Understood? So that's the reason I implement first what? Get entity by calling those function models. So already there is some data available. Am I clear? Those function models are going to return the data from some table. Some table. That's the reason I use that. So if you don't have any data, if you don't have any data, so you need to provide all these things. We cannot remember this thing. That's the reason I went for this example. Is it clear? So generally, see, first of all, just creating the OData service will not end the job. We will consume that OData service from where? From the front end application. So in the front end application, what you will do? One second. In the front end application, you will create what? One view. I mean to say, I'm talking about UI5. You will create one view. Okay, here you'll enter what? Product ID. Here you'll enter the type code like this, the required fields. You'll enter the data for this. You'll enter the data for this, and somewhere you will click on what? A button like create. Okay, you will click on the button what? Create. You'll enter the data. You'll enter the data. When you enter the data and click on this button, this data should insert in what? The backend system. So what is the stuff we are going to execute? The create stuff. So when you're doing it from the front end application, I need not do all these things now, because I'm supplying the data from what? Front end application. But at this stage, what I'm saying, we know only back end part now. What is my job here as an ABAP consultant? I may be responsible only for developing the OData service. If you are involved in both the things, anyhow, you will construct what? A view where the user will enter the data, click on the button. There are some dedicated methods. There are some dedicated methods in our UI5 framework. Okay, in the UI5 framework, okay, we have something called as what? One second. Hmm. Um, what is that? Yeah, there are some methods related to what? OData. We need to call the appropriate methods. Okay, we need to call those appropriate methods to insert that. So at that time, we need not worry about this particular syntax. But here, what I'm thinking, I'm just a plain backend developer. My job is to check whether the create operation is working or not. So I cannot remember all this thing. That's the reason I just copied it from here. And now what I'll do, I'll change the data. What is the data? This is my existing record now 1010. I'll give 6010. I'm just changing the product ID. Where is it? Yeah. Wherever the product ID is there, I'm just changing it. I'll change it to 6010. Here also I'll change it to what? 6010. Done. 6010. And for my interest, I'll change the description also as 6010 notebook. Okay, I'm not bothered about the other fields. I'm just changing the value for what key property. What is the key property? 6010. Then what you have to do is, when you want to perform the create operation, don't pass any parameter in the URL. Don't pass any parameter in the URL. Now you have to choose what post. So far we have chosen what get method for querying single record or multiple records. In the last class you have said delete. Now I'll choose what post. Post is a method used for performing a create operation. So this is the URL you have to give. Choose the radio button with post. Make sure that you enter what a unique what product ID. I will click on execute. I'll click on execute. It has to stop there. Good. It is stopping in my method create entity. Now if you see here, what is my interest now is what are the data I passed, whether the data is received successfully or not. So if you see W entity, I'll say F6. Yeah, I might have got the data. Let me check the content of this W underscore entity. Good. What is that? HTFN 6010. What is the description I gave? 6010. So here the focus as of now is whatever the input I am passing for the post method, whether I am able to read that data or not. Yes, how to read the data? By calling one instance with the what read entry data, which returns a work area. Which returns a work area. Now it is confirmed. Now it's confirmed that the data is what successfully read. One second, let me switch on the charging. One second. Yeah. So now it is confirmed that the data is successfully read. So what I have to do now, I have to go further and try to insert that. Done. So earlier how many entries we had? 116 entries. Na? Now let me check for the number of entries. One second. I'll choose this product set. I'll choose the count. Earlier 116. Now also it should be 116 because we have not written any logic for insert. I'll say execute. Still what 160 only done. So now let us go back and implement the further code. So what you are doing the service implement, it is confirmed that the data which are passing to the request, it is successfully read in my work area. So what is my work area here? W underscore what entity. Then I got the data in this. I got the data in this. So now what you have to do is I need to do the insert operation. So what is the dedicated function model for that? BAPI underscore EPM underscore product underscore. If you don't have that function model, if you don't have that BAPI, how do we generally insert the data into any table? Suppose you want to insert the data into KN1 table. What you will do? You will prepare a work area W underscore KN1 type what? KN1 and you will set the data for what? Required fields. You'll assign the data for the required fields and somewhere at the end you'll say what? Insert what? KN1 from what? Work area. This is how you write the logic manually for inserting. But here I'm having a dedicated function model. I'm having a dedicated function model for doing the create operation. So what I'll do here, I'll say if W underscore entity is not initial, if it is not blank, if it is not blank, what I have to do? One second. Yeah, if it is not initial, what I have to do here? I have to prepare the product header data. So I'll just say prepare what? Product header data. Prepare product header data. I'll prepare the work area data. One second. Data. One second, please. Yeah, also data w and one second data w underscore product underscore header type. What is the work area you have to prepare here in that function model? Yeah, this one. It's a mandatory input parameter. So I'll prepare a work area of this type so and so done. And then also w underscore product underscore header hyphen hyphen. What are the fields in that product underscore ID equal to? In my entity level, what is the w underscore entity hyphen only product ID, no underscore. Like this, let us map the data for those rest of the 9 fields. Done. Product ID, and here it is what type underscore code. Second field is type underscore code. In my structure level, it is our entity level, it is only what type code. And then this is category here also I think it is category, and then this is name here also it is name. Then we have description field, here also it is description done. And then okay, what else? Product underscore ID, type underscore code, category, name, description. What else? Supplier underscore ID. In my structure level, what are the fields here? Supplier underscore ID, supplier underscore name, tax underscore tarif underscore code, measure underscore unit, and then currency underscore code. There are the fields in that. So keeping this in mind, supplier underscore ID is equal to, in my entity level, it is only supplier ID, and this is supplier name. Okay, in my entity level, the next field is supplier name. Here also it is what? Supplier underscore name, done. Product ID is our type, okay, done. Then in my structure level, it is tax underscore tarif underscore code, tax underscore tarif underscore code. Then here it is only tax, and then we have what is the next field here in entity level? Measurement unit. Here it is what? Measure underscore unit, and this is what is the next field here? Currency underscore code. In my entity level, it is only currency code. Then currency code, done. Okay, so my work area is what? Prepared. Then what I'll do here next step, I'll call the BAPI function module. What? To create what? New product. Call the BAPI function module to create the new product. I'll call the function module. What is that? BAPI underscore EPM underscore product underscore what? Create. Then header data. So these are all optional here. I'm just removing it. Header data equal to what is the work area I prepared? W underscore product underscore header. W underscore product underscore header. Done. And if period, that's it. That's all. So I'm preparing the necessary parameter and reading. So the main thing you have to understand is how do you read the data passed for what? Create operation. What is that instance method? Read underscore entry underscore data, which is a method of an interface. For that interface, the object is given by what? SAP itself. What is that? IO underscore data underscore provider. So using that, I'm done activity. So earlier we have 116 entries. Let me generate the runtime artifacts. Right, I have generated the runtime artifacts. Let me try to maintain. So here, Just product set. Let me get the count first. I'll choose $count. Then execute. I got how many entries? 116 entries. The count of products is what? 116. So even if you execute this function model, happy underscore EPM underscore product underscore what? Get underscore list. If you execute this, how many entries it is showing? 116 entries. Done. So now I want to test my what? Okay, we have 116 entries done. Now I'll choose the entity sets. I'll choose product set. Let me query for a particular record. So here I'll say ht-what 1010 ht-1010. I'll click on what? Execute button. When I click on the execute button, I don't want to debug this. So I got the response. I got the response which contains what? Data. I got the response which contains data. Okay, so what I'll do now, I'll click on the button what? Use as request. Okay, I'll click on the button use as request. I'll say hello. Done. Right, so I got the response here. So how do you test it now? Make the necessary changes to the key property. So let me give it as 6010. This also I'll give it as what? 6010. I'm changing only what? The key property value. This also I'll change it to what? 6010. Okay, and rest of things I'm not interested. For my convenience, I'll change the description also. Let me give it as 6010 notebook professional charts. So I'll be 6010. Then what you are do in the URL, don't give any input values. Just give the URL like that and choose what method. The HTTP method is what? Post. I'll choose the HTTP method as what? Post. Post is for what? Create operation. I'll click on execute. I'll say hello, hello, hello. Done. So what is the status code I got? 201. What is that I got? Created it seems. Scroll down. Yeah, I don't have any errors. It might have what? Created. So it is giving me the blank data. It is a response it is returning. Now how do you check whether it is inside or not? Earlier was the count 116. Now let me choose again the entity set is product set. Okay. I'll choose a URL option what? $count. Okay, earlier I had 160. What is the HTTP method? Get only. I'll say execute. Yes, how many entries we got? 117 entries. Working fine. Let me query the product which I have created. Again, I'll choose my entity set. In the parenthesis, I'll give what? HT hyphen. What is that? 6010. 6011 I'll give wantedly, which is not available. HT hyphen 6011 is not available. So when I execute, okay, so it is trying to read. I'll say hello, done. But I got not found, resource not found for the segment. Let me query for 6010, which is available. I'll click on execute button. I'll say fit, done. So I got this what in green color. I got the result here. You can see, yeah, 6010. I got the product ID, I got the description working fine. So the main thing is how do we test the create operation? So simply creating the OData service is not sufficient. This OData service you have to consume. you have to consume in our front end application, that is UI file. Okay, so only if you think of only back end development, we have implemented, but how do you check whether working or not? Means this is the process. First, what you have to do in order to test the create operation, first query for what? Existing data. Query for what? Existing data based on the key property. What is the key property in our context? Product ID. So query for the existing product, you'll get some response. You'll get some response. Okay. So once a response is available in the response section, copy that response to the request section. How do you copy? There is a button called as what? Use as request. So once a response is copied as request, once a response is copied as request, make the necessary changes in the copied data. What are the changes? Make the changes to what? Key property value. Try to provide a unique value. If required, change the values for what? Other non-key properties. Then in the URL, don't give any input values, just give the entity set, and you have to choose the HTTP method as what? Post, so that it is successfully inserted. Hope it's clear. Testing this create operation. Okay, can you do this part update? We have done this before. Can you do the update? Very simple. If you see the update part here, I should know what is the function model. If you don't have the function model, how to do it, you'll understand in the coming session. But as of now, we are using this EPM product. So for all the CRUD operations, we have the dedicated function model. So what you have to do in that implementation, you have to call a function model called as what? Change. BAPI underscore EPM underscore product underscore change. So yeah, just like most of all of our other ABAP functionally, we know how to work with the change BAPIs. This there are there is a mandatory parameter. What is it? Product ID. You have to pass the existing product ID without any change. And what are the fields you want to change? You have to modify those data in this particular parameter. And whichever fields you want to modify, you have to set them to what? X. So in this you can see we have what? Character of what? 1. See here, product ID we should not change. We should not change the product ID because product ID is a key property. Update operation is what? Modifying the existing record based on the key property. So except the product ID, I can change what? Other fields. So whichever fields you are changing, you have to set it to what? X. You have to write that particular logic. After that, how do we test it? Again, for testing the update operation, first query for what? Existing record. If the data is available, I'll get the response, copy that response as a request. Once the data is copied to the request changes, make the necessary changes to what? Non-key properties. Make the necessary changes to what? Non-key properties. Then we need to choose the HTTP method as what? Put. And then do the required changes. Yeah, anyhow, I'll do it in the next session. This is a little lengthy for product update. Okay, any questions in this part? So what we understood today is, one second, what we understood today is already the implementation is done. In future, if you make the changes to your data model, I mean to say, if you make the changes to your entity, what kind of changes? You may add existing properties, you may delete the existing properties, or you may modify the data types of what? Existing properties. So whenever there is a change in the data model, whenever there is a change in the entity structure, we have to do the necessary code changes in my stub implementations. So already we implemented get entity and get entity set. I made the necessary changes. Then we implemented what? Create operation. Yeah, now you can ask the questions.
हेलो सर।
Devashish, bolo.
सर हाँ तो HTTP रिक्वेस्ट है ना वो एक्चुअली सर मतलब एंड हम मतलब ओडाटा का कैसे मिलेगा मतलब यूजर का मतलब के फ्रंट एंड में जो भी हम चेंजेस करेंगे ओडाटा में कैसे मिलेगा रिकॉर्ड।
Acha, for update you are saying,
हाँ यस हाँ
if I tell that what is the exercise you will do, what I told here, see, if you see the create operation, try to understand. In case of create operation, I have told you that this is the parameter which is going to carry the input values, whatever you have entered for a create operation, right? So how do I know that? In the signature, there is a parameter what IO underscore data provider, which is the
नहीं
object
सर
of this
मैं
interface.
सर मेरे क्वेश्चन हम लोग कैसे कनेक्ट करेंगे मतलब क्या है कि मेरा ओ डाटा की सर्विस है UI5 में जो इनपुट देगा और UI5 ये मेरा ओ डाटा का उसमें बीच में जो कनेक्टिविटी होता है ना कैसे हम लोग आइडेंटिफाई करेंगे ये UI5 के लिए ये आपका ओ डाटा सर्विस है और फ्रंट एंड से जो रिकॉर्ड हम लोग इनपुट करेंगे वो कौन सा यूआरएल में आएगा वो डाटा में बट वो डाटा में कैसे पता
See,
ये
yeah, yeah, already I covered this. See, once the OData service is developed, we will develop the OData service by ABAP consultant. So, developing the OData service means what he will do? He will create that one or more entities. If it is one or more entities, he will link the entities. He will do the implementation for all the steps. When I say all the steps, querying single record, querying all the records, create, delete, and what update. Once the implementation is done, okay, you will test all these operations. So we have seen how to test all the four operations except what update. Okay. So once I feel that all the CRUD operations are working fine, what is my job as an ABAP consultant? I have to prepare the technical specs. Okay. In that technical specs, what I have to do? I have to give the URL of my service. Understood? Every OData service will have the URL. Na? So you will give this particular URL. You will give this particular URL. Then in the technical specs only what you will say, what is your entity name? And in that only you will specify what are the properties in your entity. And then you will say what is the data type of those properties. You will say what are the key properties of that particular entity. So you will document the entire metadata of your service in the technical specs. Okay, and that technical specs is given to what front end consultant. So as a front end consultant, blindly I cannot consume the OData service. What I have to do? I have to what refer to the technical specs, and in that technical specs, I'll have the complete information. What is the URL? What is my entity? What are the properties? What is the data type of the properties? What are the length of each property? Everything I need to collect that information. Okay. Apart from that, what you can do as a front-end consultant is I can open the browser. Already I covered this. In the browser, you can give the URL, and in the URL at the end, what you will say dollar metadata. When I say dollar metadata, it gives what information of our OData service. What that information contains? The entity name, entity set names, the property name, the data, everything. So based on that information, I will develop my front-end application for consuming that particular OData service. Am I clear, Devashish?
यस 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 यस
Okay.
ओके
So when
बट
I'm consuming, I should know what is the URL of my service. I should know what is the entity name, what are the properties, all those things. So how do I get that information? From the technical specs. Assume that in the technical specs, I may have only the URL. So even if you have the URL also, that is sufficient. What you will do at the end of the URL in the browser, you'll say what? Dollar metadata. This will be the information of my OData service. Then based on this information, I'll develop my front end application. Is it clear?
यस यस
Venkatesh, what is the doubt? Yeah, it's the same thing. Where you're developing the OData service, Venkatesh, you're developing it in what? What in our normal ABAP layer only. Na? So every change you will do will be what recorded in our request. So you can do the version management, you can identify the changes. But in this case, I saved it in the local object. That's why it is not asking me any request. Otherwise, it is the same thing. Whatever we do in our version management in our ABAP development, the same thing here also. Because OData service is also developed in what ABAP layer only. Na? So the process remains same. Any other questions? So tomorrow what we will do is you try to do this update. Otherwise, I'll show that because we require how to test it also. So I'll implement this update, and then what we will do is we will go to a scenario where you may have an entity with multiple key properties, or you may have the data model where you will have multiple entities, like sales order header is one entity, sales order item is another entity. So I should be able to navigate between the two entities. So we'll try to discuss this associations, all those things from tomorrow onwards. Done. And I've shared all the recordings and what material also. Okay, so just refer to that. Already I've shared it 3-4 days back. Refer to that. This recording and material also I'll try to share it by end of today. Done. So I'll wind off then. We'll continue tomorrow. Any other doubts? Sure.